What do movie theaters, margaritas, security cameras, and the Sheraton have in common? C'est la vie. Another episode of Insecure. Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with another episode of Insecure, Season 4, Episode 10, Lowkey Lost. This episode was written and directed by Prentice Penny, whom you might know as the showrunner for Insecure. If you've watched The Wind Down, which is the Insecure after show, then you've probably seen him. He's a regular host on there. He's also written and directed the film Uncorked. It basically tells the story of a young black man studying to become a sommelier. You can actually check that out on Netflix now. I really did enjoy it. I thought it was a unique story. I really enjoyed the perspective, and I would definitely recommend it. So please check it out when you get a chance. So we have finally made it to the finale, and I thought the theme of this episode had a lot to do with making all the necessary changes in your life, getting to a place where you feel like everything is solid, everything is stable, everything is as it should be, and then something takes you completely by surprise, things you can't prepare for. And what do you do when you just feel lost? What's the next step? Where do we go from here? Well, we'll find out in this episode. So we open up with Issa at the farmer's market. Lawrence walks up, and it turns out that he got the job after all, has all these great benefits, has a corner office, has his own team, has an assistant, even has a relocation fee. I'm like, this is good. This is it. Issa is really excited for him, and when Lawrence basically asks if the distance is going to be a deal breaker, she's kind of like, no, it's not. San Francisco is just a 45-minute flight away, and if things continue to go well, she might even consider moving. I was like, oh, okay. It would definitely be an adjustment, but Issa's just in a place where she's ready to cut out all the BS and focus on all the things that make her happy, like Lawrence. Lawrence is on the same page, so it looks like we're on the right track. Then we jump over to Molly, and she is at a work event with Andrew. Her friend BJ comes up, and he basically is telling me about this after party event that they're having after this is over. And Molly's like, yeah. Andrew's like, nah. So BJ's like, well, come through if you can come through. And then he just kind of moseys on away from the situation. Andrew has been having fun, but he's kind of over it. He's ready to go. Molly's like, well, no, just stick around. We'll play some of your music. It can be like a work event for you too. She convinces him to stay, and he goes along with it, but you can tell he's really not feeling it. Issa visits Nathan over at the barbershop, and I know this little man on top of the counter with his seat and his headphones and the little cell phone holder on top. I was like, post it up. Just chilling in the cut. I am not mad at all. But then Nathan goes in the back and he shows Issa all the space that they have in the back so that she can host her event. Nathan says that they're going to have some work to do, but eventually he could see them selling products, even giving away haircuts to people who are unemployed. And I think it's really cool that, similar to Issa, Nathan's vision for himself professionally is also coming together. So that's real cool. He also takes the time to apologize for what he said about Lawrence. And he knows that he messed things up with Issa, but still it was kind of like a unexpected shock to hear that she and Lawrence were back together. And Issa is like, that's cool. And I really don't mind being a good friend to you, but please just know that I am with Lawrence and I don't really want to mess that up. And Nathan's like, hey, that's not a problem. And I'm just like, I mean, you say that now, but we'll see how things go down in the future. So Molly and Andrew make it home from the event. Molly is asking him if he had a good time, and Andrew's like, but you could see it all over his face. He's just like, he's over it. And Molly decides to go take a nap. So Andrew decides he's gonna watch the Looking for Latoya reunion. And then Molly's like, oh, but you can't watch it without me. And Andrew's like, yes, of course, everything on your schedule. And Molly's like, well, what does that mean? It means that whenever he's the one making sacrifices and considering you, then it's never a problem. But if he's the one being accommodated and considered, then it's always a problem, which is an even bigger problem. He basically says that he has always bent over backwards to accommodate her in this relationship. And she's like, well, when have you done that? I'm like, shall we count the ways? There is a whole list of things that Andrew has done, really sucking up a lot of things and dealing with them because he just wanted them to get along and continue to have a good time. But there's only so many times you could do that. And it really was to his detriment that he did that. He really should have said it before now, but now it's all coming out. This man has really considered her over and over again. He brings up the whole situation with his brother again. She's like, well, I thought we got over that. It seems like you're just holding on to that. I was like, oh, no, 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 no. Pot, meat, kettle. No, Molly did not just tell this man that he doesn't let anything go. He's like, you never let anything go. Really? I was just like, it's interesting the lack of self-awareness that people can have. I'm like, you are telling this man that he can't let anything go, and yet, wow. So Kelly is calling a couple of times in the middle of the argument, and finally Molly picks up the phone, and we find out that Tiffany's issues, which have been hinted at throughout the season, have finally come to a head, and Derek cannot find her. He cannot get in touch with her. She's like gone off the map. And everyone is worried because they don't know what's going on with her or how to find her. You know, Derek is trying to get in touch with the workers at a movie theater because that's the last place she was at, but they are not helping him. They're not giving him any information. So he's like, you know what? Let's roll out. Let's just go to the movie theater. Derek goes and talks to the manager. Kelly goes and talks to the security guard, who turns out to be none other than Prentice Penny. So not only did he direct and write, but he also had a cameo appearance. I was cracking up when I realized it was him. Molly and Issa head to the individual concession stands, but none of them find anything. And then Kelly realizes, wait, there's a bar. And when they speak to the bartender, he tells them that, hey, she had 4 margaritas, and then she went to go get some food. I called her a Lyft, and she went from there. And Derek remembers that there was a Lyft charge on their account, but no destination. So they're still kind of stuck. And Molly remembers, wait, the last time she had that many margaritas was during Cinco de Mayo, which means she probably went to a restaurant called Guisado's because that's where we went for Molly's birthday. You know, Issa went and dragged them to all these different restaurants just to celebrate Molly's birthday. And it just shows that once again, Issa has been a really solid, intentional friend towards Molly. Maybe not a perfect friend, but she's been there for her. And Molly has to kind of acknowledge that for a moment, even though she kind of shrugs it off. So we have to go to Guisado's. Well, which Guisado's? Well, since it was only like $6 and some change, she probably went to the Guisado's closest to her, which is only a couple of miles away. Issa knows this because she's a Lyft driver, so she already has the experience, the miles and everything already calculated in her head. So they roll out to Guisado's, and the manager Ronald there is like, look, I don't know. I don't really care about this job. I can't help you. Relatable. Then they look at the camera and they're like, oh, wait, can we see the camera footage? He's like, well, we're not really supposed to do that. Kelly's like, whatever, run me that footage. So they're looking through the footage and they're looking and they're looking and they don't see anything. And all of a sudden, they see a glimpse of Tiffany grabbing some food and heading out and getting on the bus. And that's how I know something is wrong, because the Tiffany that we've seen would never take public transportation. So now they have to track her down using the route. And the next thing we see is them on the bus trying to figure out what hotels are in the area, which one she might have gone to. Derek is still pretty distraught because he feels like he saw the signs, but he just kind of figured she would get better, and he really blames himself because he could have done more, but he didn't. So Issa takes the time to reassure Derek, and she's like, look, you're a good dad. You're out here trying to find her. You even gained 15 pounds of sympathy weight, and you look good. She's just letting them know that we are not perfect. We are just people. We're out here just trying to do the best we can and just figure things out. And Molly kind of looks at her as she says that, and it's like, yeah, I hope that's sinking in somewhere. So Kelly's on the phone, and she realizes that the hotel that Tiffany went to was the Sheraton, which they just passed on the bus. So they run up to the front of the bus because they need to get off now. Well, the bus driver ain't having it. He's like, the next stop is a few blocks down and y'all can get off there. And they're like, okay, we can't wait. There's a red light. Can we not get off here? He's like, nope, sorry. So of course, Kelly's just like, yeah, we gotta go. She hits the door release button. They roll out of the bus. And you would think that would be it. But of course, the bus driver is feeling petty, so he decides to call the police. So the bus driver and the police rolls up to Issa and crew. They're trying to figure out what the problem is. Why did you call the police? Why is this a situation right now? And Kelly ain't afraid. She's like, look, if you want to tase me, I got tased before. I jumped back up and I was cool. They were like, well, actually, you peed on yourself? She's like, well, don't be talking about my pee right now. This situation isn't looking good. So then Molly jumps into attorney mode. And she's like, listen, is there a reason why you're questioning all of us and not them? Is there some kind of racial component involved in all this? And then I think a light bulb goes off in the officer's head. And he's just like, yeah, no, it's not going to be me. It's not going to be today. It ain't going to be this kind of situation. I'm not going to be on the news. Like, it stops here. So y'all go about your business and you go about your business. We done here. And I was just kind of like, man, if only reality reflected this same kind of situation. If only officers in their mind thought about what these kind of situations could escalate to and what the consequences of them would be. But such is life. But I was glad for how things turned out, because I was like, look, I'm already aware of how this goes down in real life. Let's look at it like now is not the time to depict that on this show. But all's well that ends well. They make it to the Sheraton. Derek walks up to Tiffany's door and he knocks. She comes out, and it is not a Tiffany we've seen before. She has her natural hair, no makeup, just very dressed down, very sad, very despondent. And he's like, you know, what's going on? And she's just like, you know, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. And, you know, Derek ain't tripping about that. He just gives her a hug, and Molly, Kelly, and Issa are just tearing up, and everything is just worked out. Derek is just glad to have his wife back. Now, let me also say that I felt two ways about this whole sequence. On the one hand, I thought it was interesting, and I like that each of them, based on their experience with Tiffany as friends, they were all able to use their experience and their memories with her to put it together and say like, okay, this is what Tiffany would do. This is what she did. And that they really were intentional about finding her and wanting her to be okay. Love that part. And I even appreciated the simplicity of her just not having it all together. And even when I thought about it, her trying to revisit the memories that she had had with her friends, all the different places where they had had these good times, and feeling like she had maybe lost that in being this new mom, and just all these dynamics changing. I appreciated all of that, and I just appreciated the simplicity of, hey, I really didn't know what to do. However, I think in terms of the show, the fact that this took 10 minutes out of a 30 to 35-minute episode, I just think pacing wise, it wasn't the best choice. And I also felt like because of the way they did it, that we could have gotten a little bit more of a payoff at the end. And for me, I'm a big dialogue person. So I didn't need some big melodramatic moment with Tiffany at the end. There were people who thought, you know, she was going to be in the hotel with another man. I'm just like, y'all in these melodramatic theories. I get it, you know, but it's just like, no, that's not the direction we're going in. I still needed just a little bit more dialogue. Like, I would have been cool if they did something like this, where she opens up the door and he asks her what's wrong. And if she says something like, I don't really know what to do. I knew being a mom wouldn't be easy, but I just didn't think it would be like this. I don't think I know how to be a good mom. And that scares me. And scene. You know, like, and then, you know, Derek gives her a hug and everything. I just needed a little bit more of their perspective. I didn't need, it didn't even have to be like a whole bunch of dialogue, but just enough to get to the core of what her feeling was. Just that I miss, it could have been like, I feel kind of lost. I'm not who I used to be. I don't really know who I am now. Like, we just needed just a little bit. So that's kind of what I was looking for in that moment. But, you know, but I got the point, so we can move on from there. But that's just kind of how I felt about it. We see some more shots of these beautiful street murals in Los Angeles. And as soon as I saw Gianna and Kobe Bryant and Nipsey Hussle, I was just like, it still feels kind of unreal. I know the time has passed, but it still doesn't feel real to think about that. It's very bittersweet to see it, but I still appreciate the fact that they took the time to honor all of them in that way, both the artists and the creators of the show, because I felt that was really important. So we bounce over to Molly and Andrew, and they are continuing that conversation they were having before this whole Tiffany situation happened. And Andrew doesn't really know what to say. He just kind of feels like maybe they're not compatible, maybe they're not a good match, and that being in a relationship shouldn't be this hard. And Molly is really just scrambling. She's saying, you know, yes, I should have gone with you to hang out with your brother, and you know, I can be open, and we can talk this out. We can make this work. And I feel like she's all of a sudden trying to make all these concessions, and she's willing to do all these things in the relationship now that she realizes it's in jeopardy. I also feel like you did not extend yourself to Issa in this way, and Issa was really trying in the same way Andrew was to really accommodate you and be there for you and try to make things work. And you just kind of threw it back in her face. But with Andrew, you're willing to just to go so hard and to fight for it. And it's just like, but for what? And to Andrew, it's just like, what are you really fighting for right now? Like, is this what you really want? And Molly can't even say anything. She's just tearing up, and she can't really find an answer. I think it's because she doesn't want to have yet another failed relationship on her roster. I think that she doesn't really want to be alone. I don't think she wants to start this process all over again. And I don't think she wants to have to deal with the fact that she's the one who sabotaged this either. So it looks like that relationship has come to a close, and Molly has effectively sabotaged not one but two relationships this season. Molly, you're going out sad. Then we see Issa. She's home cooking, and Lawrence stops by. And as she walks into the kitchen, she sees Lawrence's face, and he looks very distraught. And as soon as I saw his face, I was just like, here it comes. Here it comes. Issa asks him what's wrong. He says that Condola came over. And they had a conversation. And Condola is pregnant. And after he says that they are cross-cutting between him telling Issa about this and Condola telling Lawrence about this. I love the editing there. But he's shocked, he's confused, he's frustrated. You know, is it mine? Why would you do this? You know, why would you have a baby with someone you're not in a relationship with? And for Condola, it's very simple. I went through this before, and this isn't an option for me. I wasn't ready for the baby last time, but I want to keep this one. And I took that to mean that either her husband may have pressured her into terminating her last pregnancy, or that she voluntarily terminated the last pregnancy. And I think with that comes a lot of physical and emotional trauma and turmoil. And I'm sure she doesn't want to deal with that again. So she is determined to have this baby. But for Lawrence, it's just like, this is the worst possible timing, the worst possible situation to be in at this moment. She says she's not trying to trap him, and he can be as involved or uninvolved as he wants to be, but she's good and she's going to have this baby. And I wasn't mad. I'm like, look, you know, your body, your choice. But I also know that the whole involvement thing, it would say a lot about Lawrence as a man if he just abandoned his child now. Unfortunately, a lot of men do it, but I don't see Lawrence doing that. So it's kind of like, that's not really an option to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to be involved. So, and jumping back to Issa, there's so much frustration and heartbreak and confusion like Lawrence in her face. And I was just like, man, I see it. And she doesn't really know what to say. She's like, you know, this is too much. Like, everything was finally coming together, and now this. And she's like, okay, so you guys are going to be together. He's like, no, I want to be with you. I want us to be together. She's like, but you're having a baby with somebody else. So it's kind of like, where do you go from here? There's no real answer. I mean, they have to deal with it, but is she actually going to deal with it, or is this the end for them? Yet again. And next we see Issa just on her balcony, just smoking, trying to just marinate on this, trying to deal with this in her mind. I'm like, you're going to need a good minute because this is quite a scenario that you guys are in. So next we see a shot of the Ethiopian restaurant yet again. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, I already know who Issa is coming to see. And of course, it is Molly. And they are finally sitting down, finally having the conversation. They're finally going to hash it all out. And I remember one of the first times we saw Issa and Molly was back in season 1 when they were celebrating Issa's birthday at the same Ethiopian restaurant. So I love how we went from that to now them hopefully trying to reconnect and come back together as friends. Like, they both are not in the best situation regarding their other relationships, but their friendship has always been kind of the recurring central core of the show. So hopefully they can work through everything and come back together. We close out with a song by Tyler, the Creator, called Are We Still Friends? And as always, the perfect placement and the perfect song to close everything out on. Now, let me say this. One thing I have to say about Insecure is that I've always appreciated how the show has kind of avoided certain tropes and certain stereotypes. Yes, you know, it's a show about young women and their relationships, and we've seen variations of that in Living Single, in Girlfriends. We've seen it before. I feel like the show has had its own unique perspective on that. And a lot of the theories that people have had for the show have always been disproven because they're always real over the top and real melodramatic, and that's not really the tone of this show. So when people were guessing that Condola was pregnant, I was just like, oh, whatever. Because people have said that throughout the seasons, like, oh, what if Issa's pregnant by Daniel? What if Molly is pregnant by whoever she's with at the time? This whole pregnancy thing has been recurring, and they've avoided it thus far. And of course, when we think of pregnancy storylines, we think of The Game, and we think about the whole Melanie, Derwin, Janae situation, and what a mess that was, but how kind of crazy and entertaining it was to watch. My biggest problem with the whole pregnancy was that from a writing standpoint, it was very predictable and it was very lazy, in my opinion. I just felt like it was a way to kind of like, hey, let's throw the wrench in there, and that they couldn't really come up with a better twist or a way to kind of end it in a very splashy way. So it's like, hey, pregnancy. And it's not to say that these kind of situations don't happen in real life and people end up with these pregnancies and not so ideal circumstances, because it does happen. But just for me, it just felt kind of contrived, and it didn't feel like something that was genuinely earned, if that makes sense. I don't suddenly hate the writers or think the show is trash because of it. I just felt like because the show has been a little bit more clever in how it's approached a lot of the topics on the show, I just felt like there could have been a more clever way to close out the show as opposed to, oops, pregnancy. But yeah, that closes out season 4, episode 10, Lowkey Lost. And it also closes out Insecure season 4. I think overall this season was a pretty big improvement over the third. I enjoyed the third, but I thought the third was way too short. And I think the development between episodes was a little choppy. I just felt like things just kind of kept happening with very little connective tissue in between them. I just felt like there was just a lot of jumping around, like, oh, Molly and Dra are together. Molly and Dra are not together. Issa is working at her job. Issa just quit her job. Issa and Daniel are going to be together. Issa and Daniel are not going to be together. Lawrence isn't going to be on the season. Lawrence is now on the season. It was just a whole lot of jumping, and it felt like the conclusion was very like, okay. So this was a little bit more fleshed out, but I still think we needed just a little bit more fine tuning in some areas. But overall, I thought it was a really solid season, and I'm looking forward to season 5. We're gonna have a little bit of a wait, but I'm also excited about the Emmy nominations for the show. Issa Rae for lead actress, Yvonne Orji for best supporting, for outstanding comedy series. I'm glad that the show is getting its just due, because even just from a technical perspective, the show was so on point. The cinematography, the lighting, so much of the show should be appreciated more, and I'm glad that that's happening now. But yeah, but until then, I've enjoyed watching. I've enjoyed this process of reviewing and recapping, and I look forward to picking back up during season 5. So once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.